Hi, everyone. This is Moms Writers Club, where we are both moms and writers. So today we were going to talk a little bit about querying as far as where to find the agents that you want to query.
We're going to talk a lot about all the different ways that you can search for agents that represent your genre or that might be promising for your work. But then we're also going to talk some about like the pitter twitch pitter. His mom stayed up too late last night.
I am Jessica and I write thriller. I have a 2-year-old daughter who is adorable and kind of ferocious in her own special way. This is
I'm Sarah, and I write women's fiction and general fiction. And I have two very intriguing teenagers.
I like that word. We both happen to have our Moms Writers Club coffee mugs today. So we're just going to do a
We
little
didn't even
cheers.
plan it. Cheers.
We
Wait,
didn't. Um, there we go. See, they're actually very cool.
I know.
They come, I don't know if it's focusing. Yeah, all kinds of stuff. And then there are a few different colors and there are the latte versions and we are working on, there are shot glasses
Although
up.
I am drinking a latte out of my regular coffee
Oh, well,
cup.
there you go. And we hope to have wine glasses soon. But if you are interested in Moms Writers Club swag, we also have, shoot, what else? Pens, tote bags, notebooks, a few other things. You can find them on our website. It's at jessicapayne.net/momswritersclub, and we'll put the link below.
So we're going to start out by talking just briefly about how we found our agents, like not the whole story, but kind of exactly what the mechanics were. I found my agent, Laura Bradford, through just straight up cold querying. She wound up, it was funny. I was thinking about exactly like, how did I find her? And I don't even remember. She wound up on my list through one of those methods. And she was actually one of the last agents that I queried. I sent a query to her general inbox, and the rest is history.
I would like to point out you only sent like 20 queries.
On this book.
Yeah,
On this
that's,
book. If
I
you
just mean
haven't
like,
seen our previous episode, this is my third book. Um, and my first one, I probably sent 70 queries. My second one, I sent over 80. And this one was 20. So, you know,
it's because you're a
what is
badass.
it? It takes years to have an overnight success, you know,
I like that saying.
something. I don't
Um,
know. It's a paraphrase.
okay. So I found, I don't even actually know exactly what to tell people about mine. So I am represented by Kimberly Brower, and I actually queried her at the beginning of October of 2020. But then Pit Dark, the pitch contest that is focused on like darker literature, whether it's fantasy or murder mysteries, she participated in that and gave my pitch a like. So I sent her another query with, I think, slightly different materials. But then I got an offer from someone else, and that's when she read it. So I guess I found her through Pit Dark, but she would have eventually gotten to my manuscript, or at least my query through just cold querying as well. So I know a lot of people are kind of unsure about doing the query thing, but it works for a lot of people. It just takes a while for
That's
most of
how,
us.
that's how agents find new authors. I mean,
I
some of
think
it's at conferences and stuff, but I think that they find a
yeah,
lot of new authors through just the slush pile.
yeah, totally. I think I've heard numbers like 70%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So we just want to talk a little bit about different places you can find the agents to query, because I know that at least when I started querying, that was kind of a hard thing. Like, you don't want to just randomly send out queries. So where do you find these people?
right. I think key to finding a good agent for you and not driving yourself completely crazy sending out 20,000 queries is focusing your list to agents that you think are going to really, are going to be a good fit for your
Yeah.
work.
So one thing you can do is you can take authors you admire who are within your same genre and see who their agent is, whether you're looking at the acknowledgments on the back of the book to see if they mention and thank their agent, or sometimes even
Almost all
going,
of them do.
yeah, or you can go to like Publishers Marketplace has a who represents section, so you can look it up. Some of them have it on their website. Some of the authors have that listed on their website. So if you feel like, you really are similar to Ruth Ware, big name there, you could see who represents her. Just as far as finding the same genre, that can be one good way to do it.
It can be also a good way to find comps. So,
Yeah, true. The next way we have listed is Publishers Marketplace. I think Sarah and I both use it. It does cost $25 a month, which is a little pricey as far as some of the writing stuff goes, but it's well worth it, even if you just get it for 1 month. And what I like to do is I like to search recent deals, and you can narrow it down by genre. So when I was querying, I looked at anyone who had sold a thriller recently and looked up all of the agents listed there.
and I used it in a variety of different ways. There are lists for their genres, they're like the top 50 agents in any particular genre. Those lists are sometimes useful. I had kind of I had someone turn me on to a kind of a reverse engineering way of using Publishers Marketplace, which is to look up imprints that publish the types of books that you write. Like for me, would be St. Martin's Press would be one, and then I would go there, and then it would say, these are the editors that were involved in the most deals for this imprint, and then you click on those editors. I would go through maybe the first 5 or 6. And then on the editor page, it will say, here are the agents that were involved in this editor's deals.
That's a
And then
great way to do it.
you can sort of see, so A, it gets you to agents who are selling books to that imprint. And B, it also shows you if there's an agent that has like a relationship with an editor. You can sort of see if this agent has sold 3 or 4 books to this editor. You can see that there's a relationship between this agent and this imprint. And so, if there are specific imprints that are big in your genre, that's a way of doing it. And Publishers Marketplace also will show you what all the imprints are under each of the big 5 publishing.
That's so helpful, because
Yeah.
sometimes you'll think an imprint is its own publishing company, which for a lot of them they once upon a time were, but like
Yeah.
some of the imprints, I had no idea who their parent company was until I looked it up that way. Also, I know Publishers Marketplace, if you hop on there, can be a little daunting. Alexa Dunn has a YouTube channel, and we can link below, and she has a video that shows you in detail how to use it for many different things, including querying. So I would recommend checking that out if you are new to Publishers Marketplace, or even honestly, like I'd been using it for over a year and still found that video to be really valuable.
Yeah. It's a little bit of a
So
learning curve using that
yeah, it
one,
really
but
is. It does so much too, like so much that we don't even use.
yeah, and it's great, if you get an offer and you're preparing for the call.
I think we both had to like look up a lot of
I
resources for
know.
that.
I know. You went first, and then I emailed Jessica and I was like, "What do I do?
And I
What do
sent
I
her
have
all
to
my
do?"
favorite
She sent me
articles.
all the stuff that she had already researched. So, first thing, phone a friend.
Oh my gosh. So, side note, I had a whole folder in my web browser of like, this someday if I get an agent, like all the articles I need to come back and reread. So that was my starting spot. And that was really fun and like very satisfying to be able to come back to that. I think a
That's
lot
so
of us.
interesting because I ignored those completely.
I admire
Um,
you for that.
so I'm on submission with my novel right now, which means that my agent has pitched it to editors. It is out there. My baby is out there with editors now, and it's a whole new level of anxiety.
Tell me more. This can be our little side segment.
But I was thinking that one of the ways that I coped with querying, and this is a big part of querying, is how do you cope with querying? Because it's a lot of stress and anxiety, and I coped with it by being kind of fatalistic, meaning like I was like, this is just whatever's going to happen is going to happen. I can't control this process. Um, Whatever, it's, the odds of success are really low, so I'm just not going to have expectations. I'm not going to expect anything. And not reading those, like, what do you do when you get an offer articles was part of my strategy. I just didn't read them. I don't know. That was my weird way of like managing my, the emotional roller coaster that it is to, have ambition in this field.
I'm going to tell you that I did the exact opposite. I decided early on I was in fact going to become an agented published author,
That's so badass.
and I never doubted myself. Okay, I might have once or twice, but like I pushed through it, and I think both ways have a lot of merit because
Oh yeah.
rejections were really disappointing, but anyway, whichever you are, it's great,
Yeah.
and you're doing great.
And
I'm not.
I had an underlying like I am going to be a great writer. Like that was
Well,
underneath it
you
all.
are a great
Like
writer,
I
which
don't
is
know.
why I was so surprised when you told me you were kind of fatalistic about it. And I was like, really? You?
Yeah. Um but that was like, that was my underlying kind of thread of commitment, was
Yeah.
that I know that I'm going to be a great writer and I'm going to keep working to to be better, and I'm going to do all the things that I need to do to try and get published, but the odds are really really long and blah blah blah.
Okay, so the next one we will recommend is Query Tracker. And you can use this for a couple of things. So we'll talk more about using it for tracking your queries later. But there's a search function. So you can search agents by genre, you can search them by country, you can search them by gender. The email newsletters they send out are nice because it lists all the new agents and also anyone who has changed their status. So if someone's been closed for 6 months and they're just reopening, it will show you that.
Yeah. And that's nice because I had a couple of agents on my list who were closed to queries, and I was just waiting for them to open for a couple of weeks and be like, send them a query.
But
I
you didn't
didn't.
EQ because you got an
I
agent.
didn't have to, but that that's helpful. So I used an Excel spreadsheet for until this most recent novel, and I had a really nice Excel spreadsheet with like
Are you
little
talking about
formulas
for tracking?
for tracking. Yeah, so I'm
Okay,
talking about Query Tracker. I'm like Miss Tangential today.
that's okay.
Anyway, it had little formulas where I would put in the date and it would calculate how many days it had been since I queried that agent. I mean, I had a really nice
You're
spreadsheet.
fancy.
I know I like Excel,
Query
but
Tracker does all that for you.
yeah, I switched to Query Tracker and it does it all for you, and I liked it better. It seemed worth it. I don't know
Query
why I
Tracker.
didn't do it at first, but yeah,
And the free version does that.
yeah,
Like all of what we've talked about, you can do with the free version, I
yeah,
think. And it's nice. One of the things I really like about Query Tracker is when you're looking into an agent you are interested in, you can they have their own profile page. So it shows the data for their agency. It lists all the other agents there. You can see if you've queried any of the other agents at their agency, but it also links to anything you'd want to see from them. So you can click on their publisher's market profile and it links you directly to it instead of going to publishers marketplace and doing a search for them. It also links you to their manuscript wish list, which we'll talk about here in a second. And there's a place you can take notes on them. It's just honestly a very
it's a
smart.
really good value. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Anyway,
totally.
the free version has got a lot of good features. Well, hello. Look who's come to say
Is there a
hello.
kitty? I have my cat over here too.
Oh, no, no, no. This is
Mm,
puppy.
hi, puppy.
Hi, puppy.
What is your name, puppy?
Emma. She's
Is
my
your
rescue dog. I know. She wants to lick my face.
wait? Is your dog named Emma?
Yes. Yes, it is. She is.
My daughter's named Emma.
Yeah. My dog and Jessica's daughter have the same name. So if you get a dog, you're going to have to name it Mia.
Twitter is also a great place to find agents, but Twitter kind of works with hashtags. So they're really great to follow and you can kind of get a sense of who they are. But there are also a lot of great agents who are not on Twitter or who just don't use it very often. So don't let that, just because they talk on Twitter a lot does not A, make them a good agent, or B, any better than an agent that is not
Yeah.
super active on
I mean,
Twitter.
there are literally like hundreds or thousands of agents who just are not active on Twitter or just don't deal with it. A lot of the really senior ones who are really busy or who are older just don't need it.
Yeah,
They're not
that's true.
interested in it. They don't need it. They don't use it, or they don't use it for business. They just use it for fun. So anyway, that's kind of like a preface to talking about looking for an agent on Twitter, because there are a lot of tools and
The
Twitter.
hashtag MSLW is really good because agents will post their manuscript wish list using that hashtag. And then along with that are two websites, and we'll post the exact phrasing below. One is mswishlist.com, and the other one is manuscriptwishlist.com, spelled out. And they use some of the same tools, but on one, an agent will have their own profile with like all of their detailed specifics, whereas the other one is a listing of Twitter posts that use that hashtag that like you can search by genre. So I would recommend using that. Sounds confusing. Just go to the websites and you'll see what I mean. They're both really great for finding agents.
So one thing for manuscript wish list with me, and I stalked the hashtag MSWL all the time. I mean, it's just kind of fun.
Yeah, it
They
is.
just post. They're very chatty, and they post funny stuff and interesting stuff. And but for my, it was not awesome for my genre.
Oh, really?
I think it was a little YA heavy
It
for
is.
me.
Twitter in general is YA
Yeah,
heavy.
Twitter in general is. It was a little YA heavy and kind of I don't know. I felt like my sort of women's fiction, general fiction, literary fiction little world just was underrepresented um, compared to like the other genres on manuscript wish lists. So it wasn't too often that I would find something. You can, you know, how there's like you can search within a hashtag on
Yeah.
Twitter. And so I did that a few times. And even when I did that, it was just still a little tricky. So I did use it. And when you find somebody who posts in MSWL, you know, puts up a post on that hashtag that is like, you're like, oh, I wrote that book. Awesome. I'm going to query them. You know, then you mention that in your query letter right in the beginning. I saw on hashtag MSWL that you were looking for XYZ, and I hope you'll consider my blah, blah, blah.
It's a great way to personalize.
Yeah. Um, so I did that a few times.
I did
Um,
that a lot. So I write
in
suspense
fact,
thriller, and it definitely lends itself to those genres.
yeah. Sorry, I
So
was just thinking that. So when I got my agent, I received an offer from another agent first, and then I you know, sent out the things, the email saying I have an offer, and I got two more offers, and I accepted the third. But the first agent that offered was one that I just interacted with on Twitter, not even under a hashtag. She just posted something really cool about she just posted, you know, she just sort of started a conversation about what what do querying authors wish that agents did more? Like
I saw that
what
conversation.
can we do or like what's it wasn't even there's another cool hashtag which is ask agent and agents go on there from time to time and just answer questions in real time which is really
Check it
fun.
out. Lots of good advice
But
on there.
she just posted this thing and there was a conversation on there and people were really cool. They were like, you know, just made some suggestions and she was just really like honoring how difficult it is to write a book and how important authors are and how much she wants to express, you know, respect and try and do her job in such a way that, you know, it works for us. And I just thought it was so cool. It was so cool the way she did
Yeah.
it. And I interacted with her some on there. And then I went to her agency webpage and I was just like, this is a cool person. Like maybe she represents sci-fi fantasy, but turned out she represented what I write. So I sent her a query letter like
Yeah.
the next day
That's so cool. I
mentioning
didn't know that's
that
how you found.
conversation. I was like, this was just a really cool conversation. I see you represent what I write. Maybe you'll like my manuscript. And
That's so cool.
if not, thank you for doing what you did. That was really cool. So Twitter's
That
a
was a
great
good
place
conversation.
to
I'm
connect.
sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, Twitter's just a good place to make actual, just genuine connection with other human beings. I know that seems like a weird thing to say about social media, but
I feel like Twitter is a hard place to come into as someone new, but I will say like I'm sure we've mentioned this on another episode, but I've made most of my writing friends through Twitter, and I would have never in a million years thought that. I started an account and barely touched it and rarely checked it because it's this huge writing community, and as someone who doesn't know anyone, it's really intimidating. But when you get involved with a group like Moms Writers Club, it's pretty incredible, like how many people you can connect with, including agents. Also, I wanted to mention, you said you went to her agency website.
Hmm.
Regardless of where you find information on an agent you want to query, always double check their own agency website.
Always, yeah.
Sometimes these other websites are not 100% updated, and an agent really can't be responsible for all these third-party websites. So make sure that that agent is open. Query Tracker is another good way. They're pretty up to date on that, just to see if an agent's open. Um, but it will also tell you, if they want a query letter in the first 3 chapters or the first, one chapter or whatever it might be. It's
The
also a good
extremely
way.
important submission instructions.
Yeah, exactly. Follow those submission instructions. I have
Very, very
also,
important. Yeah.
yeah, I found agents who I thought I wanted to query, and I went to their agency website and found someone who was actually a better fit for what I wrote. So don't hesitate to look through all those profiles, because you might find someone. In some ways, it's almost nice to have a list of agencies and be able to like search all the agents at the agency to see
Because,
if there's
yeah,
someone.
because some agencies will have a kind of, I don't know, will represent a common body of, will represent similar work amongst the agents, literary work or romance or something
Yeah.
like that.
And then some are the complete opposite, and everybody does whatever they want.
Everybody does whatever. Yeah. And there's not one's not better than the other. But like Jessica's saying, like if you come across an agency and you check the other agents there, it might be that a lot of them represent what you write. And then if they allow you to query another agent, if the first one passes, then you have a couple more
Yeah.
on your list.
And a lot of agencies allow that. I'd say it's probably 2/3 do.
Yeah.
But I was thinking that actually there are some really good writing podcasts that also have information about agents.
Hmm.
And I don't know that it's a way to find agents, but it's certainly a way to find out better if they are a good agent for you. A lot of those podcast interviews will be listed on their query tracker profile. But one podcast I'm thinking of in particular is called Authors and Agents. It used to be called the Rose Quinn podcast. Rose Quinn hosts it, and we can link it below. But she interviews agents and gets pretty in depth with what they are interested in and what they currently are representing, and kind of their preferences. And I think it's a great way to get to know a specific agent a little bit better that you might be wanting to query.
Yeah.
So, plug for that.
Yeah.
So, I think those were all of our. Oh, we had one other one, pitch contests,
Oh,
which I think get a mixed reputation. And I understand why. My first pitch contest I ever did was, I think, PitMad, and I didn't get a single like, and that's really frustrating. And it feels like there are a ton of writers out there and very few agents. And it does just depend on the day with how many agents are participating and how many people are, pitching. But I found my agent through Pit Dark. There's also Pit Mad and Faith Pitch, DV Pit, and there are a handful more. If you search for Twitter pitch contests, you can usually find a pretty good list. But it's basically where you do a single tweet with your pitch and you use certain hashtags specific to that event. And agents go through, and if they give you a like, then that is them inviting you to send them a query and whatever else they want. Sometimes it's 50 pages. But it's almost like, to me, it feels a little nicer than sending a query because they're kind of asking you to send it. So
right. I
if
mean, it may move you. So your query, by and large, I would say in these things, your query does go in the slush pile with all the other ones, but it bumps you up maybe in the visibility in their
yeah,
style,
just a
because
little more attention or a little faster.
and usually they say put it in the subject line of your email that that this is a query from this pitch contest, and so it maybe makes you stand out amongst the other many queries that they
Yeah.
get from those pitch contests. I wanted to say when it comes to pitch contests, I think people have a lot of anxiety entering them. Entering,
Yeah,
if
I
you're
think so
calling them
too.
contests, they're not really contests.
Yeah.
They're like a meet and greet in a
They're
way.
festivals online.
Yeah, you're not competing with other writers. You are putting out what you do, and agents are looking for what you do. So, anyway, I think people have a lot of anxiety about it. So, I just wanted to say one, it's a great way to practice getting your book down to like 2 sentences. So, being able, it's to answer that dreaded question, what's your book about? What do you write?
Yeah.
I had a very hard time with that. I still
It
do.
is hard, but you get better if you
You
practice.
get better at it. So
And
anyway,
there are
it's good practice. And long ago, like a pit mad, like 4 years ago or something like that, somebody I was connected with on Twitter was like, "Oh my God, it's so scary, so scary, so scary." And at the time, it had not been long since I finished cancer treatment, and I was like, you know what? It's really not scary. Cancer is scary.
yeah.
This is just a Twitter thing. This is a
Yeah.
you're gonna post a tweet like you know I get that you kind of can get we have so much invested in this, like
Yeah.
so it's such high stakes to us. It's stuff that we're passionate about and that we care about, and I get it, you're nervous, but you're a mom too, chances are, if you're listening to this show, which means that you birthed a baby or you adopted a baby, and you are responsible, or a human being, you are responsible for another human being's livelihood and life and psyche. Like, I was up last night with my daughter just hanging out, helping her process like school and life and, the George Floyd verdict and all that, like we do a lot scarier stuff as
Definitely.
moms than enter Twitter pitch contests. So I'm just like, go, like, just
Just do
freaking
it. It's not gonna hurt.
write a pitch. There is no downside.
Yeah. What I see a lot of people do is, and I'm not trying to speak down on anyone, but I see a lot of people say, well, I'm gonna wait and do this pitch contest. As in they do that instead of querying.
Oh
And I would
yeah, no, 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 no.
really recommend you just start querying and consider this like an extra, like a fun day to meet other people who are
Well, and like
pitching.
you said, you had already queried the agent who
Yeah.
and
I
you
have
just sent her
never
another
waited for a
one.
pitch contest. Yeah, don't wait for it. And the other thing is, I mean, I'm pretty good at condensing my books down into like 2 lines now, and it is only because I have done like 8 pitch contests. Just Google like how to do a Twitter pitch contest or look up your specific one like PitMad. And there are so many good articles out there, and you can trade pitches with people and they'll give you feedback. And it's, you
And
know,
that will continue to be a skill that is useful after you are agented and after you are published.
yeah, totally.
For example, my agent is, she says it's very important to try and get a 2-book deal on your first book for various reasons. And one thing she wanted from me was a pitch for my second book, which is not written yet. You don't stop pitching once you get an agent. You don't stop using, that's a
Yeah.
skill that you are going to keep using. So,
Oh, we wanted to talk a little bit, and this is kind of fun. Sarah, do you remember when you got your first request ever? Like your
oh,
first
like
full
first
request?
manuscript request?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got my first manuscript request 3 days after I sent my first round of queries ever
Whoa, that's
for
amazing.
a novel. But it was I think it was a partial request from this like freaking dream agent. This like, I was like, could not believe it. It
That's
was,
so scary and wonderful. Okay, we
it
just
was
talked about
scary
my
and
secret
wonderful.
scary. I don't mean it's really scary. I just mean like,
Yeah,
oh.
no, I know what you mean.
That's cool.
Right.
So we just wanted to talk a little bit about when you get your first request. I definitely remember my first request. It was on my second book. And I just was like, oh my God, I don't even know like how to send anything to this person. So
It
we just
definitely
wanted
feels
to,
like a milestone. It feels like,
yeah, it's a
like
big deal. So we
like
thought we'd talk
a
you through how to,
human being in the publishing industry is interested in, like, I've made this
yeah,
connection to the mothership.
definitely post it on Twitter and share it with your friends.
Yeah, people, oh gosh, people love that.
So we just wanted to talk you through kind of how to handle that after you finish screaming because you're so excited.
Hey,
So
so I want to mention I got some advice early on, a couple, 3 years ago, because I was posting a lot on Twitter about my querying progress. And like I would post when I got a rejection and I was bummed out about it, or I'd post when I got a request and I was excited about it. And I got some advice from an editor that I had gone to this conference that she put, this really small kind of boutique conference that she put together, which was really great. And she DM'd me and she was like, she how to put this? She said querying is kind of a private process, that it's like a relationship that you are building with agents, and she recommended against me being real public with the process. So I actually stopped posting like how many times I'd been rejected, and I stopped going to Twitter for reassurance. Yeah, so
Okay.
I stopped going to Twitter for reassurance during the querying process. I definitely kept it quieter on Twitter because a lot of agents are on Twitter, and
Like they could go to your profile and
yeah, they can
see
go to
every
your
time.
profile and see like if you're frustrated or if you're whatever. I mean, you do kind of have to be, if you are going for traditional publishing, um, you do
Keep in
have
mind
to,
anyone can see what you're posting.
yeah, and you do have to sort of curate your online presence some, and just make sure that you come across as the awesome, great professional person that agents want to work with, that person that you really are, rather than like the person who's grumpy in the morning and hasn't had their coffee yet, and like that.
I'm going to keep posting coffee memes and you can't stop me.
Yeah, no, I know. But like when it came to the specifically to the querying
No, totally.
process,
I hear you.
you know,
I didn't talk a lot about stuff like that. It's hard because on one hand, there's like this trend in social media where we only post the positive stuff.
yeah.
But at the same time, I definitely understand what you're saying. And I would say consider what you're comfortable with a future agent possibly seeing and how you're presenting yourself professionally, and just kind of try to find your line. I wouldn't say like never post about anything that maybe you need some writing friend help with. But I agree with you, Sarah. I never was like, oh gosh, another rejection over and over. You know who I like to
Necessary.
reach out to for stuff like that are actually my critique partners.
Yeah.
Like when I would get a harsh rejection, I would text Sarah or one of my other critique partners.
And that just comes back to like how important it is to have a community, to have some writer friends, even if they're like in Texas
Yeah,
and I'm in
just
Virginia,
for a little while though.
you know.
Moving a little closer to you.
I know, I'm really excited. Okay. So we got our first request.
Yeah,
Now
your
what?
first request. Congratulations. I'm so
Like,
excited for
woo,
you.
super excited for you.
Okay, take a deep breath.
So you just have to send them what they asked for. So my response to those was to put together exactly what they asked for. If they asked for the full, that's easy because you have your beautifully formatted manuscript that's, has 1 inch margins and Times New Roman and
Double
double
spaced.
spacing and page numbers and a running header. And right, you've looked all that stuff up
What
on
do they what do they put in the running header?
your name, your last name, slash title of your book, slash page number. And there are a million things on Google and that will tell you how to do this. If you use Scrivener, it will automatically format everything into a Word document for you. So chapters are easy. You just send it to the chapter break. If they ask for a number of pages, you have a little bit of wiggle room to like get to the end of a scene. You don't have to stop in some really weird arbitrary place because that's the 50-page mark, right? Like if the end of
And a
your
good
scene,
spot, like a cliffhanger.
yeah. I mean, don't go to 60 pages, but if the end of your scene is on page 53, I think that's okay.
Yeah.
So put together exactly what they asked for, exactly how they asked for it. Most of them want Word docs. Every now and then I've got somebody who wanted a PDF.
Mm-hmm.
And I just would attach it to an email with like 2 sentences saying, I'm really excited that you're enjoying this story. Attached is the, blah, 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 50 pages as you requested. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. I hope you enjoy reading more.
Yeah, exactly that. I was gonna read mine off, but like that's basically what I
Yeah.
would say. So
Yeah.
there are lots of resources out there for how to write a query letter. So I would recommend you just Google it.
Yeah,
Alexa Dunn.
that's a whole nother
Yeah.
episode entirely. I
Yeah.
guess I would just add that I have just plain old done Google searches on
Yeah.
like literary agents, women's fiction,
Oh,
literary
yeah.
agents, literary fiction. Writer's Digest has a list a lot that they update
Yeah,
pretty
they
often,
do.
like 10 agents who are actively seeking fiction. And
Hmm.
I got directed to that list a lot of times. And I just did a lot of kind of, Google wandering. Like I would go from the list to the agency website to some other agent's profile, back to some other list. And I actually, I added people to my list like that. So just
Yeah.
plain old fill in the blank Google search.
The other thing I forgot to mention with where to find agents is when COVID hit, I found that, so many conferences were canceled or moved
Mm.
online,
Oh
but they
yes.
list all of the agents on their website who are attending the conference or who are going to attend the conference. And this works for any conference, even if it's like a general fiction one. They list all the different genres they represent. Or, for example, Thriller Fest in New York, pretty much every agent who went to that represents a thriller or a suspense novel or a mystery. And I found agents that way that I did not find elsewhere. A lot of them were more established agents who maybe weren't looking as much or were newer agents or just people I hadn't come across. So that's another great way to find agents to query.
Good point.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that's everything on querying, but if you have any questions on it, feel free to drop them below or send us a message on Twitter. I'm at author Jess Payne.
And I'm at Seraphin11.
And now we will answer a few questions that we've gotten from people over on Mom's Writers Club, which is every other Wednesday night. Okay, so we had a couple of questions about middle grade, and Twitter is not actually working for me right now, so I can't give credit to the people who asked them, but I do
Oh,
remember what they were, and I do have answers. So neither of us write in middle grade, so take this with the caveat that I interviewed other people for it and did a Google search. So one of the questions was about word count in middle grade, and according to Writer's Digest, middle grade ranges from 20,000 to 55,000 words, depending on subject matter and age range. And the word count of middle grade has actually been going up recently, especially towards the older end. For upper middle grade, you can aim 40 to 55,000. And then for like lower middle grade, or they put more simple middle grade, whatever that means, 20 to 35,000. Another source said that it sometimes will go up into the 60s for fantasy, but take that with a grain of salt. And then the other question, I wish I had the exact question. It was basically asking what is acceptable in young adult. I think Pam asked this question because, of course, kids probably want something potentially different than what teachers and librarians want. The thing I would say about that, and this is something I've heard teachers and librarians say on podcasts, is what they want more than anything is for the kids to read. So a lot of them want them to read whatever they want to read. So keep that in mind.
okay.
So I asked my local YA expert about this because I don't read a whole lot of YA. And she said that there is no one answer, that if you're going to include sex, it tends to fade to black, but she has certainly seen books where it does not. So she said you can kind of do whatever. The important thing is that the main character's age and what they're thinking about these things reflects how old they are and how someone that age would actually think about them, not how their mom would think about it. That being said, 90%, if not more, of YA sex is completely off the page. I think the question was like specific to stuff like that. So the other thing I actually recommend doing is reading some YA that is coming out right now and seeing what other authors are doing. That will probably be your best resource, or books you think will be similar to your own.
And I have a writing friend named Emily Theed who I will put her Twitter handle below. She's done a lot of she writes YA and is has a book coming out next year, and she's a super nice person, and she has a podcast too with a friend, an audio podcast, which I'll put their podcast. I think it's called Basic Pitches.
Oh,
Oh. And And she's done a lot of thinking about this. She's actually teaching a little seminar on it in a few days at my local writing
About
organization
like middle grade and young adult.
about what is your novel? Is it middle grade? Is it YA? Is it adult? Where does it fit? How she's teaching a seminar in 3 days on exactly this topic.
I think I follow her on Twitter and she posts some pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah,
So I would recommend still checking her out. Anyway, I think that's all we have today. Is there anything else you can think of, Sarah?
that's all I got.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us. Bye.